Dear brothers and sisters, it gives me great joy to be able to talk to all of you. I know many of you are in your homes in many different parts of the world. And as if we all have an opportunity to gather together to focus on what is truly, truly important in life, which is to be able to focus our attention on God. This is a great opportunity where many people all around the globe can sit together and can be focused on God. When we look at our lives, we as human beings have expectations based on whatever our experiences have been. And so we're always expecting God to be a certain way too, and our relationship with God to be a certain way also. Just like children at the holiday time, they're all expecting toys, and then they make their list of toys that they want. Now if they get the list of toys that they wanted, then they seem to be happy, but if they don't, then they are distressed. And so same thing happens to us adults also. We expect our relationship with God to be a certain way, and we expect it to happen in a certain manner. And when our experience of God doesn't happen the way we would like it to be or way we expect it to be, then we get disillusion. We forget that God is every place, and God is in all that we can experience. And so our expectations of God are always a certain way. And as long as we expect that whichever way we want our relationship with God to be happening, and when it doesn't happen, then difficulties are bound to come in our being. So I'd like to relate an interesting story which tells us how the presence of God is always there, but we are the ones who are unable to experience that. So there was a great lover of God. He loved God tremendously. He was a very good person. He did good deeds. He would do whatever he could to help his fellow beings, and he lived a very nice and ethical life. And since he lived a life of a good person, he felt that he should have an experience of God, that God should come and visit him in his house. So he prayed to God to come, and one day passes away, another day passes away, another day passes away, and God to him is not coming. And so he thinks to himself, so he has a family, the wife, he got a couple of kids, and so he decides, okay, when we are going to have dinner, so instead of just setting 4 plates, I'll always set a plate for God, so that when God comes, there's good food for God to have. And he set up a plate, and as he set up a plate, and as they were starting to have the food, there's a knock on the door. So to him, he thinks God is going to come. And so he goes to the door, and when he opens the door, instead of finding God in the way that he thought God would be, he found a beggar. And the beggar asked him, can you please give me some food? I haven't eaten for about 3 days, and I'm very, very hungry. So the man thinks to himself and he says, I have set a plate for God. If I give the food to this beggar, and if God shows up in the next minute, I'll have nothing to give to God. So he told the person, no, we don't have food. Why don't you go to the neighbor and check if he can help you? So he came back, they were having their dinner, but he felt there was no other knock, and so he went to bed realizing that God did not come. So he thought maybe God is not interested in eating a meal. So next day, he and his wife get together and they take out all the jewelry and all the gold and the diamonds and the rubies and everything that they have, and they put it out on one of the tables. Because he thought, maybe I will offer God all of these and God would be happy to come. And so they have their dinner, the day goes by and God doesn't show up. But as they're having their dinner, there's a knock on the door. There's a woman with an infant that she's carrying. Her clothes are tattered. And she said, we don't have a place to live. We don't have any money to buy. Can you give us something valuable that we can maybe sell or pawn and get some money so we could survive? So the man thinks to himself, he says, I can give them some diamond or jewels, but if I do that, then I won't have enough for God. And I've kept all of this stuff for God. And so he tells her, no, we don't have anything like that. Why don't you go to the neighbor? Maybe he can help you. And so she goes away. And the evening goes and the night goes, and he realizes God is not there. And so the next day he thinks to himself, maybe I give God some good clothing. So he takes his best suits and his best coat and put all his clothing up there. And he's hoping that God will come and he'll give him some good clothes. And as they're sitting for dinner, there's a knock on the door. And he's very excited, he thinks God is here now. He goes there and he opens the door, and there's a person who's kind of shivering. He only has some cotton clothes on him. It's a cold night. And the person said, I'm feeling very cold. Can you give me some clothing? So this man thinks to himself, he says, if I give him my coat, then I won't have enough for God. And so he asked the person to go to his neighbor again and see if the neighbor would help him. And so he goes to sleep and he's praying to God and he's saying, I put a plate on my table, I wanted to give you good food and you didn't come, God. I put all my possessions like diamonds and rubies and other jewelry, and we thought we'll give it to you and you didn't come, and I put my good clothing and you did not come. So I am distraught, please come and visit me. So he had a vision. And so God came in the vision. And so this man complains to God, said, God, I did this and this and you never showed up. And God said, I came to your house many times. The person, when did you come? I didn't see you. She said, I came in the form of the beggar. I came in the form of the lady with an infant. I came in the form of the person who was shivering. And you did not recognize me. And it was then that the person realized that it wasn't what he was expecting God to look like, that God could come in any form to us. And it's the same thing with each and every one of us. In our head, we think of God with a white beard and, looking a certain way based on our faith, based on our religions. In each one of our faiths, God is depicted a certain way, as if God has a face, and there are limitations to God of the human body. But little do we realize that God is a power, and God is every place. God is within each and every one of us. And if we are going to expect God in a certain manner, then we are never going to be able to find a closeness with God. So what is the key to experience God? The saints tell us that for us to experience anything, especially God, we need to be like an empty vessel. If we are full already, if our being is full, if we have expectations of God being a certain way, then we will always be disillusioned. What is needed is for us to be in a state where whatever form God is in, we experience that form. And that experience is what is very, very important for us to have. As long as we are looking for God, that God should be this way, God should be that way, or many times, things don't work for us, we say, okay, God, I'll do this many penances, or I'll do this kind of things, or I'll, go around my place of worship 50 times, 100 times. And so we try to make a deal with God. But it doesn't work like that. God is with each and every one of us, and God loves us tremendously. So what we need to do is to be able to love God. And we can only love God if we are like an empty vessel. Then only love can pour into us. If we are full and we think we know it all, if our ego is big, if we feel we're knowledgeable or we're intelligent or we've done this and this is why God should come to us, or we've done that and this is why God should come to us, then we will never be able to experience God. What is important is to realize that our ego needs to be curbed. We need to live with humility. We need to understand that each and every one is one and the same. We need to understand that God the Creator is the one who created all of creation. And God the Creator is the one who sent us here. And our real essence is not at the level of the physical body. See, what we experience through our physical senses is only that which is of this physical world. But in reality, we're not the physical body, we're not our brains, we're not our mind. In reality, we are soul, we are conscious, we are full of the love and light of God. So we need to raise ourselves to that conscious level for us to be able to experience God, who's an ocean of all love, who's an ocean of all truth, who's an ocean of all consciousness, who's an ocean of all bliss. And so, as long as we remain at the physical level, we are never going to be able to connect with God. So we need to rise above physical body consciousness. Doesn't mean like we rise and go up in the sky. It means we need to experience ourselves as the conscious being that we are. Right now we experience ourselves as a physical being. We see this with these eyes. Whatever we see in the physical world is what we see. Whatever we hear, whatever sounds our ear can help us hear, that is what we hear. Whatever we taste is all that we know about food. Whatever we smell is all the fragrances we know about. And then there's the feeling of touch. And that's all we experience because we live at the physical level, and these senses have been given to us so that we can navigate our life through this physical world. You know, many people think that since we're a human being, they think of themselves at the physical level, so they want to have a spiritual experience. Little do we realize that we are spiritual beings who are having a physical experience. We are soul. We are experiencing everything of this physical world. We need to refocus our attention. We need to take our attention away from the world outside and focus it within ourselves. There's always this interesting example of the musk deer. You know, the musk deer has the sweet smell of musk. Now, it smells the sweet smell of musk, and to look for the source of where the smell is coming, is running here, is running there, is running there. Little does it realize that the smell of musk is coming from within itself. So it's the same thing with us. So to find God, to be with God, to experience God, we go to this part of the world, we think, oh, this part is very holy. We go to that part of the world, we think, that part is very holy. We go to this place, oh, it's so difficult to get to, this must be a very holy place. So we're programmed to look for God in the physical world. Little do we realize that God resides within each and every one of us. And for us to be able to experience God, let's not think of God as being bounded by some form. All of our scriptures talk about two primal manifestations of God, that being the divine light and the divine sound of God. This is why you can go to any place of worship and you'll find signs of light and signs of sound. Whether you light candles, or you light up diyas, or you ring bells or nagaras, and these are to indicate these two primal manifestations of God. And the divine light and sound of God is what created all creation. It started from the Creator and it brought all creation to being. And it's reverberating within each and every one of us. So as we learn the techniques of going within, as we learn the techniques of being able to connect with the divine power within ourselves, then we are going to be going on a spiritual journey. We're going to be experience ourselves, not as a physical body, not as a mental being, but as a spiritual being. And as we experience ourselves at the level of a spirit or the level of a soul, then as we go into states beyond the physical, we will start to experience the divine light and the divine sound of God. Now, as we experience the divine light and the divine sound, we'll have a clarity of our vision. Our understanding will get clearer. We will realize that we're not the body, we're not the mind, but we are soul. And the purpose of this existence is to have our soul merge in God. That our soul has been transmigrating from one existence to another. And so this is a golden opportunity for us to truly know ourselves. And so the key is to be able to have that understanding. Because once we have the right understanding, then we'll have right thoughts, we'll have right words, and we'll have right deeds. Because it's on understanding that thoughts come to our being, and it's on thoughts that words come into our being, and some words that deeds happen. So what is very important is that our understanding be very clear, and we be clear about who we are. Once we realize that we are soul, then as a human being, we want all of our efforts in being able to experience ourselves at that level. Right now we're experiencing ourselves at the physical level. But as soon as we start to experience ourselves at the spiritual level, we want to enhance the spiritual journey. And that's where meditation comes into play. Meditation is a means by which we experience of ourselves as we truly are. Meditation is a means by which we're able to listen to the divine sound current. Meditation is a means by which we connect with the divine light of God so that we get enlightened, so that the darkness is all dispelled and there's light and there's a path and there's a way which takes us back to our true home. And so meditation is a means of stilling ourselves. Meditation is a means of being in silence, because actually it's in silence that we gain all the knowledge. And as we silence ourselves, as we silence the body, by being in a state where all the outside things are not distracting us, as we still our mind by repeating God's name so that our attention is focused on God and our mind is not sending thoughts to us. So in that state, when our eyes are closed, we're sitting still, our attention is on God, we are doing a mental repetition of God. In that state, in the darkness, light flows forth. It could be lights of various colors, it could be golden, it could be white, it could be red, blue, green, yellow, orange, or any other color. The lights in the beginning look like they're coming and going. But with time, what happens is the light seems to stabilize for us. Even though in the beginning, when they're coming, going, there might be circles of light as if they're moving, everything stabilizes with time. What actually is happening is that the light of God is in each and every one of you. When you concentrate, you experience the light. When you're distracted, you experience darkness. So with time, as your concentration improves, you experience the light more and more and more, and then you go beyond the lights. Sky full of stars, and a moon and a sun. Then you get to what is called the radiant form or ethereal form of a spiritual master. That becomes our inner guide, who guides us into the intricacies of the spiritual journey within. This is a journey of love. This is a journey of light. This is a journey that each and every one of us can have. And so as we go on the spiritual journey, we find the unfoldment of a real self. As we go on the spiritual journey, we go from one region to another, to another, to another, and this comes with time and practice, till we finally find our merger in God. So let us just meditate for a few minutes. Please sit as comfortably as you can. Close your eyes very gently, just like you close them when you go to sleep. Your eyeballs should be straight, focused 8 or 10 inches in front of you. And as you close your eyes, those of you who have been initiated in the mysteries of the beyond, please do a Simran. And those of you who are new here, please repeat any name of God that you feel comfortable with. This repetition of God's name should be done mentally and not out loud. I pray to God Almighty to help each and every one of us here connect with the divine light within and to experience the divine light in its effulgence. I will be sitting for a few minutes. I'll be getting you out of this meditative state at that time, and my best wishes are with each and every one of you. प्लीज लिव ऑफ। हाँ, छोड़ दीजिए जी।